Welcome to Goshen Prepping, everybody. FEMA, CDC, Ready.gov, all these government websites always give you recommendations of food you need to stockpile in case there's an emergency. And if you didn't know, there are emergencies coming. Local emergencies, state emergencies, natural disasters, even like the big whopping ones, which are probably coming. And so what I did was I took all those websites and compiled all the things that they recommend. I came up with 13 things of different types of foods that you'll probably want to stockpile for emergencies because we need to be ready. Before we get to the foods, they always recommend water. And so we'll talk about that for just a minute before we hit the food. So water, they all recommend, I like this, at least a gallon of water per person per day. A minimum. I really mean it, guys, a minimum. Because up here in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, we've gone weeks without power at times, and we have to sometimes turn our snow into water. I mean, now we actually have a lot of things set up. When we first moved here, we didn't. 1 gallon per person per day, holy moly. I couldn't even imagine trying to survive on just 1 gallon per person per day. You need far more than that. So I always recommend 2. 2 gallons per person per day, or even better, if you get a 55-gallon drum, 1 of those per person per month, it's a good way basically to ration it out. With the food, number 1, canned goods. So many different canned goods. Fruits, veggies, meats, beans, all kinds of stuff. We even get like canned potatoes from Aldi. Canned foods are great. If you didn't know it, when they make canned foods, they actually make them so it's sterile. There's no bacteria and stuff in there to make the food spoil. So once it's sealed, and as long as that can is sealed and the seams on it are not compromised, that canned food will last indefinitely, way beyond the best buy date. It's not an expiration date, it's a best buy date. So don't think that it's expired. I mean, you can see some of the things that happen if basically it does go bad. If one of those seals gets ruptured, even like a micro rupture you may not see, the food will start to spoil. You open it, it may like explode the contents out. Basically you'll have some kind of foul odors. That's a different story. But there's literally channels on YouTube devoted to people eating canned food from, we're like 50, 60, 70 years ago, and it's still good. Canned food will last like that, definitely. So when all these government agencies say to stock up on canned food, I couldn't agree more. Canned food is where it's at, by the way, but that's only the first item. Number 2, dry goods. And they store very well, by the way. Rice, pasta, oats, all kinds of things that the government says to have. I completely agree. Have lots of those in stock too, because again, storing wise, they store very easily. Most of the time, like pasta, in a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber works great. But like rice and stuff, and dried rice and beans, you don't even need that. Put rice in a bottle and seal it, and it'll be good to go. The beans, I would still put that in a Mylar bag if we're talking about years and stuff, but they're great things to keep. Number 3, powdered milk. Powdered milk's great, especially if you have kids in the house or even pets too. Powdered milk is fantastic because you know what? Depending how long that disaster, I mean, when it comes to these government agencies, they always say, be prepared for 3 days of disaster. That's not a disaster. That's simply just time off, But either way, having powdered milk works really well because if we're talking about long term, your access to a cow is probably going to be severely diminished or completely gone whatsoever. So having powdered milk, fantastic. I like getting my powdered milk from American Reserves. I'll link it below, but there's lots of places you can get it from. Number 4, cereal and granola. For me personally, cereal, with the powdered milk, my kids like a good dose of sugar-laden cereal. Sure, why not? Granola's not bad. We make a lot of homemade yogurt in the house, and we'll often have granola that the kids put in it. They love it, by the way. But that's one thing you can keep, too. Number 5, nut butters. Peanut butter, almond butter, hazelnut spread. Is that what that stuff's called? I don't usually eat that. My kids love that stuff. But peanut butter, I'm a big peanut butter guy. But when it comes to peanut butter for me, I don't buy the general, regular brand off-the-shelf peanut butters because it's not peanut butter per se. It's peanut butter with all kinds of other stuff mixed in with it. For example, often some kind of like vegetable oils, which seed oils and stuff, I try to stay away from. I buy the natural peanut butter, no sugar added peanut butters, and they're much, much better for you. Now, I'm not saying don't go with ones possibly that have some carbs in there because depending on what's happening with crap hits the fan situation, you'll want to have some extra carbs. That's fine. But I try to go with more of the natural peanut butters. How about you? Number 6, dried fruits and nuts. I love dried fruit, by the way. I admit I don't really eat a whole lot of it. We have it sometimes, but when it comes to different types of roasted and salted nuts per se, I love them. I mean, I love cashews. Do you like cashews? But they're higher carbs. I don't usually eat a lot of them. If I do, it's usually mixed in with all kinds of different things like pistachios and sometimes even macadamias and walnuts and pecans and just peanuts. Delicious stuff. I like to have them all mixed together, and that's my on-the-go to-go thing. I usually have a big jar of them I take places, so if I get a little hungry, I just get a handful. Oh, and almonds too, by the way, and it keeps me going. Number 7, crackers and whole grain chips. Some people like it. With the peanut butter, not bad. That's not my forte. I really don't have a lot of type of crackers and stuff. The crackers do well. They don't last forever. Even wrapped over time, they start getting, there's nothing worse than having like a saltine cracker and you go to bite it and you're waiting for the crispiness and it's kind of like just chewy. You're like, oh, it's like the most disappointing thing there is. You know what I'm saying? But that's what a lot of people have. Not really a whole lot, as far as like my style. Number 8, protein bars and granola bars. And I do not eat a whole lot of these. I'm not saying they're bad. When it comes to like my bags, like Go bags and Get Home bags, I do have a lot of those in there. But protein bars, that's like almost a lie. Are they higher in protein? Sure. But when I think of protein stuff, I think of high protein, low carbs. Protein bars are high protein and high carbs, or even higher carbs sometimes. It's really they sneak it in there. And that's fine, to each their own. But for me, I try to stay away from carbs. But again, if we're talking about crap, it's the fan, having granola bars or those things listed as protein bars work well for that. You want the extra carbs, but the proteins help satisfy you. And that way when you eat it, you're not going to be as hungry like in 30 minutes if it was just a straight carb bar, which a lot of them are. Number 9, shelf-stable beverages. I like having cans of electrolytes, basically powdered electrolytes. A lot of people have different things like Gatorade or, some lemonade, whatever. Those powdered drinks are really good. I will warn you though, water is what you want. Water with electrolytes, have a pinch of salt and some water is what you really, really want. Having other stuff in there, sugar-laden lemonades, all that stuff, once in a while, if you need it, especially if you really need some extra energy, I get it. But those things are really, all the sugars constantly in those drinks are really not that good for you. I would have them, especially with kids who can utilize and help with energy a lot better than we can as adults. Maybe that way it gives them a little bit of relaxation in times of crises. But again, if you're out and about and doing things, sure, the extra carbs, why not? But personally, I try to stay away from the carbs in those drinks. Number 10, baby formula. Maybe you have a baby in your life. Maybe you know somebody who has a baby in your life. If you're at the store, granted, I think we're still having problems with baby formula stuff. For our family, we never had baby formula for our kids. But I've noticed, not that I noticed, the past couple of years, everybody's noticed that there's been a huge baby formula shortage. I think last time I looked was like a couple months ago, and it still looked like they were low on it. There used to be times where you can get baby formula on sale. And I still recommend sometimes you'll pick that up, not necessarily for a baby in your life. In reality, if we're talking about crap, it's the fan, you can drink it yourself, have some baby formula stuff on there. It's weird, I know. But if you do know somebody with a baby, it'd be good for them to have also, obviously. Personally, we believe your first avenue should always be breastfeeding, but that may not be possible, Maybe it's a crap, it's the fan situation and the mom died. So having some baby formula for the babies would be really good for them. Number 11, special diets. This may not pertain to you, but if you have somebody in your house who has special needs, some kind of special diets they have to have, be it infants or elderly, whatever the case may be, you may want to consider having those on hand and stockpile as well. Number 12, comfort foods. Having candy is really great, by the way. Especially if you have to do a lot of hiking and such, having like Jolly Ranchers really helps a lot, or some type of candy. But it's beyond that too. Coffee and tea, it really plays a major role in being a comfort for people. I'm a tea guy. I love coffee. I just can't drink it. It messes my brain up. But having those type of drinks really helps you out a lot of times when it's time to relax. I just want to have a cup of hot Earl Grey and we're good to go. And 13, pet food. Don't forget your pets. For us, we often have foods, and some animals are really good, like dogs eating scraps and stuff. But, honestly, having some canned pet food, too. I always say canned, by the way, it's going to last indefinitely, too, just like canned human food. If some of that dry stuff will go rancid over time. So I always recommend if you have some pets, you want to be able to feed your pets, too, have some cans put aside for them as well, just for that purpose. All right, guys, there you go. 13 things that the government recommends. Not bad. Again, the government always says for 3 days. I think most people usually have enough food in their pantry for 3 days. I say longer than that. When you stockpile for 7 days, for 2 weeks, for a month, for a year. Set goals and start heading toward it. But this is a really good list to get started with. It shows you the diversification of things you can stockpile. What would you add to the list, of course? Put in the comments below. And thanks, everybody, as always, and we'll see you tomorrow.